see all of you here. I guess that's what happens when you invite three really intelligent, popular men to come see that gallery. You're embarrassed already. It's my pleasure today to host this conversation with James Gordaneer, who's made a remarkable contribution to the BC art scene through his active and ever-evolving art practice, but also as a teacher, mentor, and active contributor to the dialogue on painting in Canada. Moving between painterly abstraction and representation, over the last 6 decades, James Gordaneer has produced a remarkable body of work that the gallery is honored to share with you in this current retrospective. To share in this conversation, I've invited 2 of Jim Gordaneer's friends and colleagues, Stanbrdge and John Luna. Stanbrdge has been a practicing artist and art instructor for over 40 years, exhibiting both extensively and both nationally and internationally. John Luna is an artist, writer, and curator, currently teaching at the Vancouver Island School of Art and the University of Victoria. Thank you to you both for joining us. Well, both Harry and John have arrived with questions to get our conversation started. The intention of today is to have a conversation with everyone present today as much as possible. I know that there's a lot of people in the room. So we'll get a few questions started from our panelists, but then I'm going to open up the floor to questions. And if there are thoughts and ideas you'd like to, during their questions, please do feel free to put up your hand and jump in. I do have a microphone that I can bring around as well. So Harry, I'm wondering if you wouldn't mind getting us started today.
Well, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's great to see all of Jim's work and be able to enter into that evolution of paint and media and idea to this moment. And it's a pleasure to be here, Jim. And I'm just going to talk as I look, and right now I'm looking at some paintings, Jim, from the 70s, and I recall that period briefly with the, because I know those paintings down there are acrylic. And I wonder if you could tell us about the impact that that technology had on art for yourself and generally across the country, because it was, I remember it as being quite huge.
Yeah. I'm afraid I'm not a teacher anymore. These guys are, so I have to use the mic. Is it working all right?
Yes.
Okay, Harry. But before we get going on that, I just want to welcome you all and thank you all for coming. There's a great opening, a lot of people here, so you people must be devils for punishment. Anyway, Harry, the ones you're referring to are from the 60s at the far wall there, and they are acrylics. And I think that was in the air. There were a lot of acrylics being sold and used by artists. The imagery comes directly from all of the hubbub about a man in the moon in space. So they are related in that way to spatial considerations that were happening in those days.
Well, one of the reasons I asked that is I was down on Broad Street, they had the Cusinier show on, and of course his work is all acrylic. And it just took me back when I reflected on his work and your work, just the impact that had in our day on the idea of space. One, that you could lay a huge amount of color in very quickly and go on in about an hour because it had dried.
Right.
And I was wondering how that informed those paintings there where you're mixing sort of stained and loosely brushed work with large fields of drying.
Well, I think acrylics, I'm born and bred with oils, and I've used them all my life. However, there have been a few forays into acrylic, and the advantages, of course, as you say, they dry quickly, and I was surprised today when a chap was saying, he introduced himself as a painter, and he said, you know, I like those ones down there. They're so crisp and clean. But as the later ones come, they get muddy. Well, I tried to correct them that I don't think they're muddy. They get more painty. More paint used, and it's oil paint. So I think that is the difference. But you're right, Gary. The clarity of the medium itself really was a release to me. And that's how I think it became so free and open.
I've got a question that might relate to that one a little bit, or just pick up from it. You know, it's looking at the different phases of work, and particularly, it seems like this work here in the 70s, and then the very, very new work, 2009 and so on. There's a certain kind of, I want to say, earthiness in the power. And some of the, I don't know if you've had a chance yet to read Lisa Baldassarre's terrific catalog essay, and as well the accompanying notes for the show, really helpful, by Nicole Vance. But it interested me because some of the things that you brought up about your work, the connection to drawing, movement back and forth between abstraction to representation, reminded me, for instance, of someone else like Richard Diebenkorn for your generation. Not the superficials, but some of those issues. As well as the connection to craft, like through Matisse or something. And I guess one thing I was interested in is in that work, I always think of color as conveying not a specific landscape palette, not as such, but a sense of place in color.
Right.
And I wondered if you could comment on your changing palette in terms of place, if that's a correct coordinate.
That's a good question. First of all, there's almost too much of it.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah. You're forgiven, but well, the fact is that as far as color goes, this is one of the most intuitive elements of my painting. I don't have a specific idea or plan as far as color comes. It comes very intuitive. And I think it has changed from time to time, but at the same time, I think it's remaining strange. You mentioned the 70s, and you mentioned the later ones, and it's interesting that you mentioned that because I consider the 70s, half of which were in Ontario before we moved here, and half of the 70s were here in Victoria. And that was almost the decade when I came of age. And I really think I started to handle the oils as I should be. And strangely enough, just had a lot of different roads along the way, as you can tell. But the last couple of years, I think I've gradually come back to the 70s in the paintings. And it might be interesting for you folks to have a look at the ones in the 70s. And there's a couple of them on the ramp there and the ones over there. And I think the thing is they're different paintings because there's 30 to 40 years between them. However, I'm in the same psychological and emotional space that I was there in the 70s. And I think that is what is bringing forth. And it's sort of coming to peace, which I think was in the 70s. But for myself, but you can take it from there.